God bless you. We're glad to have you be with us again on another Growing in Grace podcast. And today we have with us Sister LaTonya Dasher, and she's a real estate agent. And today we want to talk about the home buying process. One of the scriptures speaks about prospering and being in health as your soul prospers. And I believe that was third epistle of John, where he said, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper, be in health as your soul prospers. And we are in a time where it's good to have home ownership. There's a lot of ways to live. We can rent and we can lease, and we also can buy.
Yes.
And the buying process takes a little effort, but the rewards can be great. You agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
And so let me ask a question. I know I was talking to a wide range of audience. Our audience is perhaps, young and middle-aged and sometimes senior. And depending on your age and where you are in life, you may need a different scenario. I'd like to ask you a question about the renting versus buying. When does it make sense to rent? Does it make sense to rent at any time? Because some people will say, hey, you should always just buy. Does it make sense to rent at times?
Well, it depends on your circumstance and your situation. Obviously, I'm a realtor, so my first thought for most people is that, yes, we should buy. Because, again, like you were mentioning in the scripture, a lot of people don't realize it, but you do begin to build wealth by owning your own property, whether that be just land alone, whether that be a house with a little bit of land, or, it could be a corner lot that might just be grown all up with trees, but if it's your property, it's your property. So in some cases with the home buying process, the first thing you do want to do, of course, is assess where you are. And that entails getting some education. While getting educated, of course, I'm going to say find a realtor to help you throughout that process, and so that you can look at where you are and determine whether or not renting is the best option for you, or if buying is the best option for you, or if renting until you are able to buy is the best option for you.
And so there's some nuance there, where you are in your life. Are you getting ready to do some personal things? Because it's not just a financial thing. It's also, like you said, where you are in your life. It's not just financial. It may be that you're getting ready to move out of state, or this and maybe you're only here for in a particular place for a short period of time. So if you're there for a short period of time, then would it make sense to buy then, or would it make sense to rent then?
Again, it depends on your situation and circumstance. Just say you're a young person and you just graduated high school. Your idea or your goal is to get a certain degree, and that degree is only offered in, like we say, out of state. But your idea is to go to school, get that degree, and then come back home. My professional opinion then would be, you may want to buy here before you leave, and then keep this property here as an investment property, which will help fund your education while you're away. So it really depends on the circumstance.
So it sounds like while you may pigeonhole yourself into one category or the other, it may be good to talk to somebody to see what your opportunities are, because your mind can be opened up to some opportunities that you haven't thought about.
This is true.
Because the reason why I say this is because I didn't think about what you just said, in that you could think about setting up yourself for some revenue opportunities while you're away at college, or help fund your college. See, I didn't think about that. So you might need to talk to somebody that could help you in your thinking. And I will say, I know that one scripture speaks about uh, not leaning to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge the Lord, and He'll direct your path.
Absolutely.
And some of that is where you don't lean to your own understanding. You talk to somebody.
Absolutely.
And sometimes people have got the not gotten the best out of their decisions because they didn't get any counsel.
It's true.
So now we've come to the position where we want to buy. We want to buy. So now we're dealing with a first-time buyer.
Okay.
Young person, never bought a home, and so they're getting their mindsets ready to buy their first house. What is your advice?
Again, once you get the information to assess where you are, and you have hired a realtor or solicited the help of a realtor or someone in that capacity, then they will help you determine how you should buy or what is the best purchase for you to make. In some instances, that may look like a duplex. You live in one side and rent out the other side. It may look like a single family home with 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. It may look like a multi-family home where you live in the basement and you rent out the first floor, or vice versa. But a realtor would be able to help you determine what direction, based on your circumstances and situation, that could help you build wealth, and also in the long run begin to own your own home and maybe a couple of homes.
Okay, so here's the thing. All realtors don't talk like you. And what I mean by that is simply this. It's like you keep talking about opportunities for a person to build wealth and to do, some things other than just buy a house to live in. So here's the thing. How do you find a realtor?
Well,
What are some criteria that you would put out to our audience that will help our audience to find a realtor? Because it sounds like this is an important part of your process is who your realtor is. You've got that versus also you've got a situation where a lot of people try to go at it alone. So how could you direct us in that?
there are many ways to find a realtor. Oftentimes, you can find a realtor, of course, on the website. But you'll find out if you talk to your mentors or you talk to people who have influence in your life, they can help you. If you go to or attend a church, you might want to get with your pastor to see if they know anyone. Also, if you're already in college or away from home, you may want to check with your local counsel in the school, and they could help you get in touch with a realtor.
Okay.
Also, social media is big for realtors as well.
Okay. So what criteria would you, what boxes would a person have to check if somebody was going to be your realtor?
Well, one, they would definitely have to be a realtor. Some people don't know that there is a difference in a real estate agent and a realtor. A realtor has taken an extra step to say that they will abide by certain rules and guidelines that are by the Georgia Association of Realtors. They're also a member of the Georgia Association of Realtors. All agents have to keep up their continuing education, but a realtor more likely is going to join boards and be more aware of the upcoming changes that take place from year to year and often throughout the year, to the forms and to the laws that govern us in the state. And so that is one of those things.
Okay.
The other thing would be that I would want them to be someone familiar, maybe a familiar face, whether I saw them on social media or if I see them in my community mainly. If I see them out and about doing different things in the community, that would be another box that I would be looking for to be checked. And also someone who is not just wearing the label of a realtor, but someone who exemplifies the guidelines and rules that most realtors go by. They have integrity. They don't just necessarily want to know you for the time span of the transaction, but they want to build a business relationship with you. So that would be the other box.
Okay, very good, very good. So what about the scenario where a person says, I don't want a realtor to be involved in this transaction. I just want to do it myself. What would you say to that person?
I would say a couple of things. So the first thing I would say is why. And then the other thing would be to give them a little bit of advice if they would accept it. In the state of Georgia, all real estate transactions should be closed by an attorney. Being in this field, I've learned that there are some that have not, and then once the person realizes what they have signed off on, or the situation that they find themselves in is not really in their favor, it causes a lot of issues. So not often, and most people don't want a realtor involved. One reason I've found that they say mainly is finance-wise. But most people don't realize that when you have a realtor involved, you save money as opposed to paying it out. Although you still pay it, but you end up with a better profit when you use a realtor. And then there's other ways to have a realtor involved in the process. You don't necessarily, if you don't want their advice, although they will advise you, you can actually hire them as what's considered a transaction broker or a transaction person in just to help you with the paperwork and to make sure that what you're signing does lend to what it is that you're trying to do.
I see. I see. We had a pastor, Bishop Lawson, was one of our pastors, one of my pastors, and he would always advise to read the fine print. Read the fine print. And I've been to a few closings. And in those closings, they're kind of going through the fine print real fast.
This is true.
And so they'll this is what this means, this is what that means, and then you just sign. So I would ask you, what is it that a person should slow down on? Is there any of that fine print that they kind of rush you through that you should slow down on, and not just take that explanation? And or should a person read their closing statements before they come to closing? Because at closing, it's like you sign. This is what this means. And if you hadn't read that stuff, you just be signing stuff. You don't know what they're talking about. You've been through a lot of closings, so you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
What advice do you have for buyers to not feel pressured to just sign things that they don't know what they're signing?
So again, I know I'm a realtor, and of course I'm saying this, but in most cases, it is the responsibility of the realtor to be sure that you understand before you get to the closing the documents that you're going to sign. Some attorneys' offices send out what we call the preliminary paperwork before, a day or so before. Yes. Some do it the morning of. In all cases, you want to have some opportunity, even if it means getting to the closing early enough to go over your emails and things that you've signed to be sure before you put your wet printed signature on the paperwork.
This is the dash. The morning of, they're going to see.
But see, if you're working with a realtor, you've already been briefed and you know, and you've had time to go over those documents.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we keep that before you.
Okay. So bottom line is before you go to
before
you go.
Know before you go. Know before you go. Know everything you can know before you sign off on those papers.
Yes. Because you can have a haunting feeling just to sign stuff that you don't know what's in it. Yeah. You just sign it and you don't know what's in it. That could be you know, and they're telling you, but you can still have that nagging feeling. Okay, what did I just sign? And so very good. Any advice, any further advice for a first-time home buyer? Um, First-time home buyer, you don't know what you're expecting. You've been renting, and now you want to jump into home ownership. What would you tell a young person, seasoned person? It doesn't matter, but they want to go into home ownership, coming from renting, and now they want to buy.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because you can be a first-time home buyer more than once. Your age doesn't entail whether you're a first-time home buyer or not. Any first-time home buyer should, as much as possible, be make yourself educated. If that means calling people, if that means, like I said, seeking counsel, you want to know what it is that you're getting into when you purchase a property. Again, whether it be just land, whether it be a home, whether a single-family home, whether it be a multi-family home, whether it's a duplex, a quad, I mean, any of those things. Because once you own it, you own it. So you do want to know what it is that you're getting into when you purchase a home or property.
Yeah. Here's a thing that I don't know that all potential home buyers know, is that oftentimes your mortgage is less than your rent. Can you speak to that? Because I've talked to several people, and they tell me about their rent. And I'm like, and then what they're renting, the space that they're renting, how much they're paying for rent. And I'm like, wow. Wow.
Especially in this market, rents are through the roof. I mean, they are through the roof. Most people are paying enough rent to have two mortgages.
You're right.
To have two mortgages.
So
renting, because I'm a realtor and I keep saying that, but let's just say you live and you learn. But if you can purchase, it is always the best thing to do. But if you have to rent, then that's okay too. However, when I work with people, I advise them, while you're renting, let us be working on preparing you to buy. Because you're paying a mortgage either way. You either paying somebody else's mortgage or you're paying your own.
yes.
And that's one of the main things that I try and bring out in the seminars that I do. Because I've heard a lot of people say, well, we like to be wealthy. We're building wealth. We want to be wealthy. We want to do this. We want to do that. We have all these goals in mind. But what I've learned is that it really begins with owning your own. Whether it's, like I say, land, a small house, a medium-sized house, a multifamily house, a quad, a duplex, it begins there because it gives you so much power. Power that you don't even think about. But again, if you get a realtor or you seek counsel and they can help you look at where you are and assess where you'd like to be, that is the best way to start home ownership or to start buying a home. Because then you'll know what it is that you can do and the things that you shouldn't look at doing at that time.
Yeah, based on where you are.
Right.
Financially, how much cash you have on hand.
This is true.
What's your credit score?
Right.
And if you're renting, what's your credit score that's going to get you to where you can buy? And based upon credit scores, what you can qualify for.
It's true.
And how much down payment you need.
It's
so
true.
Those are some of those things that you would be talking to the potential home buyer about.
Right. So there's three major things that help you determine whether you can buy. And that is, of course, your credit score. And then your debt to income ratio.
Yes.
And then also how much down payment you have or how much down payment can you come up with. And there's so many different ways to work on either of those facets. Your credit score can be worked on. Of course, your debt to income ratio can be worked on. And then how much down payment you have. at any given time, that can be worked on as well.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about debt to income ratio.
Okay.
So we've got a person, they're in an apartment right now,
Okay.
and they're in Atlanta or in this area where you're paying ridiculous rent, and like you said, you're paying
Everywhere.
somebody else's mortgage,
Right.
and so you fed up, you're tired of it. I mean, you call your landlord, they ain't coming to fix your refrigerator, and you paying, and they went up, and they went up on your rent, and they ain't fixed nothing, and you done start fixing your own stuff. You just frustrated. Now it's time to do something. Sometimes you got to get upset. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And just say enough is enough. And
That's
so,
true.
but here's the thing: you've got a car note, you got Macy's bill, and you got Best Buy bill, and your Amazon. You done got that card. It's charged up. And
My.
so what does that mean? Debt to income ratio. What does that mean?
Okay.
And then what's the acceptable ratio that allows a lender to say, I will lend to this person?
Okay. So your debt to income ratio is just literally what it says. It is what amount of income do you have versus how much debt that you've incurred.
Mm-hmm.
Also, how do you manage that debt on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis? Of course, the acceptable amount varies based on the lender. Could be anywhere between 40 to 60%. But if it's 60%, more than likely they're not gonna give you a loan.
Yeah. If you got $100 and 60 of those dollars is already allocated to debt. Is that a good way of looking at
That
it?
is.
That shows that you're 60%, your debt to ratio income is 60%.
This is true.
So that's just a small number, but 60% of your income is already allocated to debt. Yeah.
So that is not a good place to be in, or you don't want to be in that place.
Yeah. And so what is that range that's a good range?
Again, because my client base is so broad.
Yes. Then the range is kind of broad.
Yeah, the range is kind of broad.
But let's think about what about just the first-time home buyer?
First-time home buyer. They would really want to be between about 30, 35. Like I say, really 40 or below is really a good place to be.
Yes.
Again, because of the scale of clients that I work with, I do know lenders who could and would lend to you, at a higher debt income ratio. But of course, when you in that space, it causes you to have to make other adjustments in other places in order to obtain the loan. You may have a super duper high interest rate. You may have to make payments more often than monthly. It's just, again, it's several different ways to buy a home or to become a homeowner. But what's the best scenario for you?
For you. And part of the debt to income ratio, it really tells a story not only to the lender, it tells a story to you too. How much can you really afford? Now, it used to be a time when lenders would try to, was that the lenders or was that the agent? I think it was the lenders. They qualified you for on your gross, and they may still do that now. But you have to be wise about how much house you can afford, because you don't live off of your gross. You live off of your dispendable income after taxes.
This is true.
Am I right about that?
Yes, you are.
And oftentimes they'll try to qualify you for what you gross, and you've got to be wise enough to know that that's not how much house you can afford.
This is true.
Because you don't live off your gross income.
This is true.
So,
However,
yes,
most cases when you're looking to rent, that's what they use. Most property management companies use your gross income
Yes.
to determine whether or not you can afford to rent. So it's either 2.5 or 3 times the rent.
The rent, yes.
They want to see that as your gross income.
Yes.
But you got to keep in mind, you still got to live within that mean.
Right.
So if your debt to income, if you go get all those cars you was naming, you gonna be in trouble.
Right. And that's what I want everybody to think about is that your debt to income ratio, it tells you how much you can afford, because if you bite off more than you can chew, you might not be able to afford what you purchase.
This is true.
You might not be able to afford what you purchase, and that's where some of your other people come along and take advantage of of people who default and foreclose, and you have other people that come and take advantage of those scenarios. But the people that are listening to us, we don't want them to ever have a foreclosure, and so that's why we want you to pay attention to what you can really afford, and only do what you can afford.
This is true.
And do something that's manageable and something that won't put you in a bind or a strain.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
I'm asking you if it makes sense. I know it makes sense to you. Does it make sense to you? That's what I should be asking.
Absolutely. And I forgot the second question. You said that the income ratio, what does that mean? And
Yes. I think,
what was a good range?
Yeah,
and
what was a good range?
I forgot the other one. I should be writing this down.
No, that's fine. Ask about the debt to income ratio. Another part I did want to help our listeners to think about is what's included in the debt to the income ratio, which is something that I've had to manage myself. The debt to income ratio, it's about what's borrowed, but you still got to consider what you live off of. Am I right in that?
That is true.
Because your debt to income ratio is about loans, and then that'll
And
give
your
you a
revolving
number.
credit.
Yes, and revolving credit. But just like we talked about the gross, how that sometimes people will try to qualify you based off your gross, which is, you just got to know the truth for yourself. How much disposable income you're dealing with.
This is true.
You've got to know that for yourself, and you've got to advocate for yourself and know how much you can afford, because you still got to look at disposable income, not just your gross. And then also your debt to income ratio, while that may look good, you've got to consider all of the other obligations you have that's not a part of your revolving credit or things that you have lent to you.
It's true.
Right?
Yes. Because not all of those things that we think of as debt. Some things that we owe, as you were saying, we don't really think of those as debt, so to speak, like your utilities.
Right.
But if you don't pay them, you will not have them. But
Right.
that is a part of your debt.
Yeah.
If you're going to live any place, you, of course, want to have lights if it's total electric, so you want power going there. If it's not on a well, then you may have a water bill. And again, it's part of what you need to live off of, but it may not necessarily be counted in your debt when it comes to debt to income ratio. But
Yeah.
it is a part of it.
Yeah. So when you're really being wise about your purchase, you begin to look at utilities. You begin to look at proximity to where you work, what gas might look like for you to travel back and forth.
Yes.
You begin to look at all of those things, what your budget items are. And then if you come up with your down payment by borrowing from Uncle John, well, now you got to put that in.
You got to tell
Although it's off the books, perhaps. But then I think you have to disclose that too, though, sometimes.
You always have to disclose
Yeah.
money that's gifted to you.
Uh-huh.
If it's a gift, if it's borrowed, you have to disclose that.
See.
Because if you borrow it, they expect that you're going to have to pay it back.
Right. Even Uncle John.
Even Uncle John. If he gifts it to you, oddly enough, some lenders want Uncle John to prove
That it was a gift, not a loan.
where he got the money from to gift to you.
Oh, really?
Because there have been some developments in that arena. So they have started to, some lenders will ask for Uncle John to prove
Where he got
where
the money
he
from.
got the money from. And so I've seen it where Uncle John may say, I give you the money, but I had to give it to you another day. I can't give it to you today. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm learning something.
Yes, I have to.
Don't you see? Don't you see? So, so all of those things have to be factored in.
They do have to be factored in.
Factored in.
Again, that is a part of educating yourself, getting into a home buyer seminar. Most of them are free. And in that process, finding a realtor to help you kind of sort the information that you gather, and then helping you potentially find what is the best lender for you in, again, your circumstance and your situation, to help determine, the best way to make a purchase or buy a home, buy land.
Yeah. So in this competitive market, is it shifting now? Is the market shifting now? I know about a year or so ago, my wife and I, we were selling and buying. And we sold our house the day before we put it on the market. and they paid us more than what we asked for. And then we were trying to buy a house, and about 30 people were trying to buy the same house. And we offered more than what they asked for the house, and we still couldn't get the house. I think the person that got the house waived the contingencies, didn't do any inspections or anything of that nature. And so we ended up having to build because we couldn't, the market was, you just couldn't find that house. Or when you found it, it looked like, a lot of other people wanted it. And so it just began to be a little difficult. Are we still in a hot market where it's, there's a lot of competition for the available housing, and the housing, the supply is not there for the demand? Are we still there?
So we're kind of moving away from that. Inventory is there. You're seeing more. We're seeing more homes come available in more affordable price ranges. But there has always been, for most of my life, a shortage of housing. But there are now more people coming out with ideas of how to provide housing, or more affordable housing and more sustainable housing. So there is a lot of things going on right now that is allowing for more available homes. So the market isn't as feisty as it was when you and your wife were looking to buy. It is because, again, the median home rate has gone up. So a lot of buyers are deciding now to just kind of wait.
Yes.
Hoping that the market would allow for more affordable housing and also more sustainable housing.
So the interest rates have gone up.
The interest rates have gone up. They have gone up.
Yeah. And so it's cooling the market down a little bit. Is that what you're saying?
Just a little bit, yes.
So with that, what should people be doing now? If a person wants to buy within the next, I say, what should people be doing now? And if a person is not really in the market and they're about to get in the market, or they're just starting in the market to buy, what does it look like from start to finish as far as the time frame for a purchase? What's the average time frame that a person should be looking at or anticipating?
So once they actually get their pre-approval or get their pre-qualification letter, or know for sure that they can get the money or have the money to purchase, and they choose a place, it usually takes between 30 to 45 days to close. However, if Uncle John go ahead and give them all cash, then they can do a close or expect to close between 7 to 14 days.
What are you talking about? You talking about like all cash to buy the house?
If Uncle John get him, like, go to the bank and pull out this, and then...
And he got to prove where he got the money from.
Well, it depends. It depends.
Oh, it depends about that?
If he give them all cash before they hire a realtor and, they get involved in all these things. If they already have the cash, when they meet the realtor and they start the process, they may or may not ask where
Where
it
he
came
got
from.
the money from.
Right.
Okay.
From Uncle John now, but they probably gonna still ask the buyer.
Yes.
But
Okay. Yes. Okay. This sounds like we need an Uncle John somewhere.
Yes, we do. A Uncle John, Uncle James, Uncle Paul, somebody.
So most of us are not sitting on the cash, and most people, you've had a cash closing probably in your real estate lifetime.
Several cash closings.
Several cash closings. Okay. But probably not most.
Yes, not the majority.
Yeah,
I would say 90% are gonna. Well, and that's not necessarily because they may not have it. Again, based on circumstance and situation, and their goal, they may not want to use all their cash. It might be a better decision for them to use some of their cash, and then use some of Uncle John's cash, and a little bit of a institution's cash to help them achieve whatever goal that they have going forward.
Yes. Okay. Well, very good. Very good. Can you speak to some programs that may be available for first-time home buyers? Because, a lot of people don't know Uncle John.
That's right.
Actually, we just made him up. And if you don't know him, he ain't going to lend you the money anyway.
Right. And he may not lend it to you even if you know him.
Even if you know him, he probably holding on his cash for something else.
Right.
So you need some help. You need some help. So what help is out there that people may not be aware of? So
there are
for a first-time home buyer.
There are several different programs. There are I'm trying to think of one. Not really sure if the Chenoa is still available. Georgia Dream is one. HUD still does certain things. There are other ways of getting assistance that's not necessarily called a down payment assistance, but there are programs Atlanta Housing does where you go through this course. NACA is still available, and most of those programs like NACA and Atlanta Housing, they take you through a course so that you prepare your mind and also, prepare your finances, and they help you get in order so that you're able to then get a realtor, get a loan, and then purchase your property.
And do things in a sustainable way.
Yes.
So they'll begin to work through them what it looks like, what home ownership actually looks like, and all the other costs that are involved in a home ownership.
Right. Also the maintenance and things like that, because that's one of the parts that we forget. When you own a home, there is maintenance.
Yes.
And there's upkeep.
Yes.
Just like with most things in life, you have to prepare for those things. You have to put away for those things. Exactly. And you have to be mindful that those things will come. It's not that we're thinking that they're going to happen. There's going to be some maintenance with owning property, whether there's a house on it or not.
Yes, well, yes. And so, like, when you're in the apartment, you call, Bookman.
Oh, man, now you're dating us. Oh, my goodness.
Now somebody listening to me,
they're not know who Mr. Bookman was.
You know Bookman.
Oh, yes, I know him very well.
Now, some people, they're not going to know who Bookman is.
That's okay.
But he was a character on Good Times, and he was the maintenance guy.
Yes.
And I don't think he was really good at it.
I don't think he fixed anything, ever.
But the thing is, when you have an apartment, you call the maintenance guy.
It's true.
And hopefully he'll come and fix whatever your situation is. And it's actually on the owner of the owner. The owner has that responsibility.
That's true.
But when you become the owner, guess who? That's your responsibility.
You become bookman.
Yeah. Or you got to hire a bookman, or you got to But all that's your responsibility.
It is.
It's completely yours, and that's why I brought up earlier the fact that sometimes people are in a position where they're supposed to be able to call bookmen, but bookmen don't even come. And then next thing you know, you're doing your own stuff. And that ought to be very frustrating, and that ought to help you to begin to think, you know what, maybe it's about time for me to get into owning myself, because I'm actually having to do some of these things that the owner is responsible for. And so you're paying somebody else's mortgage, and then sometimes you're doing some of the maintenance yourself sometimes.
This is true.
You know, I'm speaking to somebody now. I know maybe there's some that are having a great rental experience, but then there may be some that are on the fence and you're being pushed. And so we just wanted to give a little help to you to help you to see how you can actually go into ownership.
This is true. And one thing too, with what you just said, oftentimes I find that renters get frustrated when the homeowner doesn't do certain things.
Yes.
And what you have to realize, and what people that do what I do help you realize, is that the owner of the property that you live in, they don't live there. It's an investment for them. And so it's a different mindset. So while it may be a priority, because yes, they do own the property, it's not going to be a first priority. It might be in the category 5 priority to get that thing repaired, because they don't live there. It's an investment. So again, it's a different mind frame. And once you own your own property, you will understand that statement.
Yes. And I say I've enjoyed this conversation, and I'm enjoying it, and I see how there's more to be said and more to be uncovered. What closing remarks would you like to leave our audience with?
Well, if you're in the mind of wanting to own property, first thing you want to do definitely is educate yourself. In that, you want to look for a counselor or a realtor or an agent to help you get your ideas together, and assess where you are, and also help you determine which type of lender would be best for you to work with in order to make a purchase, or if it's now the best time for you to purchase, or is it best for you to rent and work on preparing to purchase. Those are the things that you need to look at before you actually take that leap and go in that office and write on that paper that's got the small print on it.
Yeah, and we've got to remember, when you get to that point, you need to know before you go.
Know before you go. Know before you go.
Know before you go
Know
to that
before you
closing.
go. Yes.
All right. Well, we appreciate our audience today, and we're so glad to have Sister Dasher working with us. And,
Thank you.
And talking with us and giving us some insight into home ownership, and especially our first-time home buyers, which there's some more that we can talk about other than first-time home buyers. There's investment properties, and
Yes.
you've worked with all of those types of buyers as well.
Yes.
And so I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health as your soul prospers. Hope to see you again.